Alright, for this demonstration I'll be using the tune Tune Up by Miles Davis. And typically before I start working on a set of chord changes, I'll take some time to try to find the original recording of the piece and spend some time listening to that so I can kind of get a sense of what the composer's original intent was for that particular tune, and also, help to get the tune in your ear and just conceptually get your head right before you start working on improvising on it. Okay? It's also a good idea to find 2 or 3 other prominent recordings by respected artists and check out how they interpreted the tune as well. Okay? After having done that, the first step I probably would take is to look at the root movement of the tune. Now, Tune Up is a nice tune to start working on because it's got a really logical harmonic movement. It goes right around the circle of fourths, and it basically is laid out in a series of 2-5-1s that go through a couple different keys. Alright? So first taking a look at the harmony overall, and then playing through the roots and singing through the roots of the tune is going to give you a really strong sense of the harmony and of the direction of the chords, where each chord is moving. You're going to learn to sort of start to memorize the changes and also get the sound of them in your ear so that when you're playing, you'll be able to anticipate the sound of the chords a lot more readily. Okay, now I'll be demonstrating these exercises on trombone since that's my principal instrument. All of these exercises are designed to work with any instrument, so it's not specific to one particular instrument. The concepts will work with pretty much anything. Okay, so here we go. Roots on Tune Up, and I'll just be playing these as whole notes and half notes, nice and simple. Okay. Now after having played through the roots, really straightforward. If you wanted to try improvising a little bit, just with the roots to kind of get loosened up with some basic swing rhythms, you might do something like this. Okay, and so forth. So I'm not doing anything earth-shattering right now. I'm just kind of playing through, just getting myself loosened up, working on my swing a little bit, simple rhythms, and just trying to work on keeping my place in the form and changing chords accurately at the correct time. Okay? Now, after you've worked on the roots of the chords, the next step might be to take a couple of additional notes from each chord scale and add those to the mix. So, with my method, I typically start relatively easy. So here we're starting with just 1 note per chord. The next logical step would be to add a second note or maybe 2 other notes per chord. So why don't we try and go ahead with that. We're going to use 3 notes per chord. So I'll first do an exercise where I just start on the root of the chord. I'm going to play up the third of each chord, and then I'll demonstrate a couple ways you can work with that and develop that skill a little further. Okay, so here's a little exercise. Okay? Once you can do that, the next step would be to flip it. So instead of starting on the root and playing up to the third, you're actually going to be starting on the third of the chord and playing down to the root. So this is a good mental exercise to be able to look at a chord change and think to yourself, okay, what's the third of this chord? How am I going to start this phrase? And so forth. It's also a great ear training exercise, particularly if you play this with an accompaniment track, because then you'll be hearing yourself start on the third of each chord along with the recording rather than always starting on the root. Okay, so a really brief example of that would be and so forth. Okay? So once you've gone through those 2 exercises, then you're ready to loosen up and have a little fun with it. I'm going to do a quick chorus where I'm improvising with the first 3 notes on each chord. I'll be going up the scales, down the scales, but my goal here is to just stay with those 3 notes, keep my place in the form, keep a good time, and keep good time and a good swing feel going. Okay, so that's a little example of improvising with the first 3 notes of each chord only. Now, eventually you want to work your way up to being able to play the full chord scale on each chord. Okay, now a lot of people feel like they need to know the entire scale before they're ready to start improvising on a tune. Okay, now for some of us that's a little bit of a daunting task, especially if you're just starting out, to be able to know all the different variations of your chord scales and all the keys to be able to play, you know, a full set of notes per change. That's really not necessary, and a lot of times trying to take on too many notes at once can kind of get in your way of improvising effectively over a set of changes. So in my method we start small, just 1 note, we're adding a couple notes. From 3 notes we might go to 5 notes next, and then eventually you're going to get to be able to play the full chord scale over each set of changes. So I'll just do a quick example of how that will work. If I wanted to play the full chord scale over each measure, I'm going to be playing from the root of the chord up to the 7th. Okay, I'm going to leave out the octave, root to the 7th to help outline the full chord. I'm going to be playing all the chord tones on the downbeats. So root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th will fall right on the downbeats. Other passing notes will fall in between. I'm going to play with a nice simple swing rhythm in 8th notes up to that 7th, and then I'll have a quick second to catch my breath before the next chord begins. Okay, so here's an example of that. And so forth. Okay? Just like we did with the 3-note pattern, these patterns can also be reversed. So instead of starting on the root of the chord and working way up to the 7th, this time we're going to start on the 7th of the chord and go backwards down to the root. Okay? Again, this is great to practice with an accompaniment track so you can start to hear what those 7ths sound like against the chord. Okay? That exercise can also be modified so that you're starting on the 3rd of the chord going up to the 9th of the scale, or starting on the 9th and going back down to the 3rd. Okay? Then you've covered several different chord tones, starting and ending phrases. Okay? So that really gets you to start hearing inside the chord rather than always starting on the root. Alright, up until this point we've been dealing mostly with chord scales. Another great exercise is to practice isolating specific chord tones so that you learn to hear those chord tones against an accompaniment, and teach yourself to hear those particular chord tones so that you're more likely to play them in your solos. Okay, so we're going to start here with the 3rds of the chords, and as I mentioned before, I will use a play-along track for this one. I like to use the iRealB app if I don't have another play-along available. That app gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of the tempo, whether you want to loop a set of measures, adjusting the style of the tune, and it comes preloaded with over 1,000 standard tunes. So it's a great app if you don't have that one already for your iPhone or Android. So in this exercise, I'm going to first play just the 3rds of each chord as whole notes and half notes. Then I'm going to sing those same notes, see if I can really reproduce them orally without the assistance of my instrument, to prove to myself that I really have them ingrained. And then I'm going to do a little improvising where I start every phrase on the 3rd of the chord and then playing, relatively simple solo, but really trying to nail the thirds every time that comes around in the changes. Okay? So here we go. So again, really simple improvising, but you know, focus on accuracy and really being able to hear those particular chord tones. All right. Now, up until this point, we've dealt mostly with harmonic concepts, such as working with chord scales and isolating specific chord tones. My method also has a strong rhythmic component to it as well. So one exercise that I like to use for rhythmic practice is using rhythmic motifs or motives as a basis for improvisation. So in this exercise, I'm going to be using a simple one-measure rhythm that sounds like this. Da, do, da, da, do, da. Okay? And I'm going to use that rhythm over the entire form of the piece. I'm going to try really hard not to change that rhythm for a full chorus. So I really lock it in. And then the second chorus, I'll use that same rhythm, but with a little more variation, so you hear me kind of you know, develop that idea a little bit more. Okay? Now this exercise is designed to give yourself a little rhythmic discipline, so to speak. It's really, for me, I found when I first started doing this that it was a little bit more challenging than I thought it would be to try to really nail that rhythm and not allow myself to play anything else. Okay? And then, you know, after going through this exercise, giving yourself an opportunity to use those motifs to help give your, you know, work on your solo and melodic development, rhythmic development in your solo. I found it was a great exercise for that as well. Okay, I'll be using the play-along track for this one as well. Thanks for listening. It's been a pleasure sharing some of these ideas with you. I'm going to wrap up by just kind of putting this all together and blowing a few choruses for you over the changes for tune-up. So sit back and enjoy, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.